Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I'll be showing you guys an updated version of the best AR build in the entire game that will not only let you do well over 3 million DPS, that's without having Unstoppable Force active by the way, so in reality do a lot more damage than that, along with doing over 150k damage each headshot, upwards of 200k if you're set up perfectly, which is just an insane amount of damage, but you also have a ton of survivability as well, making this build both amazing for group and for solo content. I'm sure many of you guys have seen my previous AR build, and you might be wondering what the point is in me making a new build or an updated version, but I really just wanted to improve upon the previous build and see how much more damage I could actually get. And I actually ended up making the build substantially different and way better in the process, so I felt it was definitely worth making a video. This build was also worth making because it's not going to be affected by any of the nerfs that are happening in the future, so you can farm for this build and set it up without any worry. Honestly though, this build was kind of a pain in the ass to set up properly, and I still don't even have the perfect setup, but I mean, as you can see, the damage is still insane regardless. To be honest, the build is pretty complicated, so my apologies if my explanations are kind of all over the place. I just want to make sure to be as informative as possible so you guys know exactly how you can make this build for yourself. I spent a lot of time putting this build together, doing a bunch of math, staring at different builds and different gear pieces, looking at a million different combinations. But with that being said, I know from a surface level, when you see the build, it might look kind of stupid and you might be like, wait, you're probably not going to do a lot of damage with this, but trust me, as you can see, the damage is very good, and I've done the math a million times, so there is a method to the madness here. I just highly recommend that you watch the whole video and pay close attention to the explanations that I give, because otherwise it'll be very difficult to replicate the build, and you might not understand why I'm doing certain things and how I'm getting to the damage that I'm getting to. Additionally, there are a few different ways you can set this up dependent upon your playstyle and the gear that you have, which I'll definitely make sure to mention throughout the video. If you want to see this build live in action, I stream every single day over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nick2, and I'll be using this as my main build from now on. So if you want to see the build, feel free to head on over there. I'd love to see more of you guys there. But I'll also make sure to leave some gameplay of me doing a level 3 control point, a challenging bounty, a challenging mission, and some dark zone landmarks at the end of the video so you can see how the build performs. Like always though, if anybody needs help setting up the perfect build but you don't quite know how to fit the pieces together, or maybe you need help farming for gear, leveling up a new character, getting one of the exotics, getting crafting materials, or whatever the case may be, feel free to email me at nick2biz@gmail.com and I would love to help you out. Alright, sorry for the long intro, let's get into the build. Alright, so starting off with the specialization, I'm going to be playing the sharpshooter. This is mainly for the additional headshot damage I'm getting, which is 25%, which equates to a lot of additional damage, which is great. But not only do I get the headshot damage, I get 30% increased reload speed, which now I think is more important than ever, considering that on ARs you only have a 40 round mag. This is especially great if you have the extra 20 round mag, getting you to a total of 50, because on that mag, by the way, if you don't have that, you get that from doing weekly projects in crafting blueprint. I know a lot of people weren't really sure how to get that last time. That can be pretty difficult to get, but if you're one of those lucky people that has it, that's going to give you less reload speed, so that's even more reason to run sharpshooter and get the extra reload speed, as that helps equate for that. Also, you get stability and a little bit of additional accuracy as well, but mainly the stability. This is great if you're using an AK and any AR. I mean, extra stability is great. You could also run survivalist if you want to, as you get 15% increased damage, and you also get extra healing and a couple other bonuses. It's kind of just up to you. If you want to run survivalist, you can. I just think I'd much rather have the headshot damage and the reload speed for my playstyle, but if you don't think you're comfortable going for all headshots or something like that, you can definitely go survivalist. It's kind of just a preference sort of thing, but yeah, up to you. So moving on to the build itself, I know if you look at this from a surface value, this looks like an absolute mess, and I will do my best to try to explain why I did everything here, and there is a whole bunch of different ways that you could combine everything, so I'll definitely go into that. But the main takeaway is 5, 7, 7. These are the attributes that I have on my gear. I'm sure some of you are familiar with 377, and you might be wondering why I wouldn't do that. Reason being is with this setup, I'm able to get more damage than I would with 377, and I'll explain to you how to do that. But first off, what comes to your mind initially is probably your brand sets are all over the place. You have 3-piece Gila, you have R&K, you have D&H. What is going on here? Like I said before, I did a whole bunch of math when doing this, and this actually is the optimal setup. You can use different brand sets, but the reason for this is, as you can see, I have a mod slot in every single piece. I have a mod slot in my mask, a mod slot in my holster, 2 mod slots in my knee pads, a mod slot in my gloves, a mod slot in my backpack, along with 3 attribute rolls on my backpack. That's why my brand sets are an absolute mess. But in all reality, The only brand set that I lost that's going to equate to damage is going to be a Raldi, which is going to be giving me 10% accuracy and 10% headshot damage. That's the only thing I lost going for this. But in the process, I gained extra damage by getting on the ropes, and I still have 5 attributes, meaning that I'm still getting the weapon damage that I need and the damage elites in every single piece of gear that I'm running. This is also a pain in the ass to set up because some brand sets obviously are going to give you more attributes or more roles than other brand sets otherwise would, which is why I have brand set mayhem all over the place here. And honestly, the brand sets don't really matter at this point because all I care about is Fenris, and then I get all my weapon damage from other sources. So as long as you get these attributes on these pieces, you can get them in pretty much any order anywhere. There are some rules, and I would try to pay attention to my individual roles here, but a lot of things on the backpack, on the gloves, on the chest, you can kind of swap those out how you please. It just depends on your gear. So you might be wondering, why go for 577? Well, the reason for this is because I get on the ropes, which is going to be giving me an extra 25% weapon damage when my skills are on cooldown. And I'll tell you guys how to play around this talent in a little bit here. I know that some people don't like using on the ropes. If you don't like using on the ropes, you can get a backpack such as a Wyvern backpack or a 511 backpack that has 2 passive talents on it so that you don't have to play around on the ropes at all. But with Safeguard being nerfed, I don't see the point in running Safeguard anymore because it's going to be nerfed pretty much into the ground, making it almost useless. So I decided to supplement that with on the ropes, getting myself extra damage. Now you might be wondering, what's the point in having the other 7? The other 7 is Unstoppable Force. This gives me a ton of extra damage when having a lot of armor. As you can see, I have 260k armor. That's equating to a ton of extra damage. Also, I'm sure you noticed, I have 1600 skill power with this build because of this is the product of having 7 yellow attributes, making my chem launcher heal me for an absolute shit ton of HP, kind of helping numb the pain of not having Safeguard anymore. And like I said before, 5 attributes means that I can go for more damage. Now, I'll go over how to get this set up properly, but first, let's just talk about weapons, and then we can go into every individual role. So with this build, with any AR build really, I like to run the P416. This is going to be probably giving you the most damage per second possible. Other honorable mentions are the AKM. Unfortunately, I have a classic AK. You'd probably rather have a black market one or something. The AK is great though. As you can see, the base damage is really high. The RPM though is kind of low, but you also have some stability problems with this, so I decided to go for optimized on my AK. It's kind of fun to use. The P416 is going to be more consistent overall, but if you like the feel of the AK isn't bad at all. The MK16 is also pretty decent, but like I said, the P416 is going to net you the most damage per second over any AR in the game. In terms of talents, I like to go for Optimus here to have, because since I have 5 or less, I can meet the requirement for Optimus, and honestly, it isn't worth going for any more red attributes with this build because all the other reds that I could be getting isn't going to give me all that much extra damage. So sitting at 5 gives me a happy medium, and it lets me go for Optimus here, which is a ton of extra damage. You could also go for Ranger or something, but honestly, I think Optimus is your best bet. Then I have Allegro. Holster talent isn't that big of a deal. In terms of the optics that I have here, or just the mods in general, I guess I should say, I have a 3.4 times that's giving me damage to elites. The reason I'm running this scope instead of 8% damage to elites or something is because with the Nemesis talent, I'm getting extra 25% headshot damage when I am scoped with my current weapon. And this holster talent actually works with a 3.4 times scope, giving me an extra 25% headshot damage. In terms of my other mods, I just have extra rounds here. For the grip, I went for accuracy. It doesn't really matter here. I didn't decide to go for crit chance because I don't have any crit with this build. And then for the muzzle, I went for damage to elites. If you don't want to use a Nemesis, you could use a Chatterbox instead and get an extra 20% rate of fire for 10 seconds. I think the Nemesis is going to give you overall more consistent damage, as it's not going to be, dependent upon getting a kill and then reloading to get extra damage like the Blabbermouth, talent would. But I think while Blabbermouth is active, 20% rate of fire is going to be worth more than 25% headshot damage. Honestly, at this point, I think it's kind of preference, whatever you want to use, whatever you have fun using. I like using the Nemesis just because it's fun to me, and I've gotten kind of bored of the Chatterbox using it so much. But yeah, like I said, you can use pretty much either one. There isn't really any other exotic worth using or any other gun worth using in the secondary slot because these holster talents are just so strong. For the third gun, doesn't really matter. Try to get something that has a decent holster talent. Mine isn't too great here, but is what it is. So getting into the gear, I'm not even sure how to approach this honestly. I think I'm just going to talk about how I was able to get to 577 and then go over individual roles and where exactly you want to allocate each of these attributes, because if you don't really know that, the build can get really messy and then you can end up losing way more damage than you would be gaining with this build, and it wouldn't be too good if that were to happen. So pretty much what I did is I got gear with mod slots in every piece and made sure that the gear had high attributes. That is why I am running 3 Gila here. I know that a lot of people might just say you might as well just run 377 and just go compensated on the gloves. Trust me though, if you do the math, I get way more weapon damage this way, and I like having my build kind of different and separate from the rest of the builds that you've already seen. Like I mentioned before, I know that a lot of people might not want to run on the ropes. If you don't want to run on the ropes, you can use a different backpack such as Wyvern or 511 or something, and you can get 2 passive talents. And then if you do that instead of having on the ropes, you could decide to go for 5, 7, and then a different number here, which means that you could probably open up the possibility of using different gear sets such as 2-piece Araldi or anything else that you want here. Now, in order to actually reach 577, here are the requirements. You have to have a Gila mask, because this is the only mask that has a mod slot. You have to have Gila gloves, which are going to be the only gloves that give you a mod slot as well. You have to have Gila knee pads, only ones that give you 2. And then you have to have any holster that can give you a mod slot. Preferably you want a system mod or a utility mod slot in here, because you don't want to be wasting one of your red attributes going into an offensive mod. The backpack here is also incredibly important, as you want it to have 3 attributes and then 1 mod slot, or just a total of 4 attributes in general, as this is getting me 2 utility here, and then 1 blue and 1 red. You could also use a Gila backpack, which is going to give you 5 attributes in total, which opens up the possibility of maybe changing your gloves to, you know, maybe Alps gloves, which are going to still have a mod slot here, but they don't have extra health here, meaning that you could get more damage. It kind of just depends on how you want to set it up. This build is very dependent upon the individual gear pieces that you have, but like I said, the main takeaway is trying to get 577 with the right rules. So let's talk about the perfect way to set this up in terms of stat allocation, like how, or attribute allocation rather, where you'd want to get your reds, where you want to get your blues, where you want to get your yellows. You can get this for most things. They're kind of interchangeable. It just depends on the piece. Like for example, on my Fenris chest here, I have an offensive system here, right? But it doesn't mean that I have to have a chest piece with an offensive system. I could instead get the offensive system on my backpack and get a utility system on my chest piece. It just depends on the pieces that you have and what mod slots you have available to them. So starting off with the mask here, this is going to be your first red. You definitely want to have damage to elites here. This is just going to be giving you a ton of extra damage. In terms of the blue here, I just have hazard protection. You could go for health. You definitely want to go for a Gila mask, as you can get, you know, 2 here, and then you get a utility mod here as well. I went for hard hitting just for free extra damage. On the chest piece here, I got skill power, weapon damage, and bonus armor, and then I have unstoppable force, hardened, and an offensive system. You definitely want to get these 3 here. This is going to give you a ton of skill power, ton of weapon damage here. This weapon damage could be higher. I'd probably rather have this around 10% and then have my bonus armor be at about 8,000, but I'm pretty happy with this. And then unstoppable force, as always, is going to be one of your main talents. I have hardened. You could instead decide to go for hard hitting if you want more damage. This is kind of just the way that I have mine set up. And then I have an offensive system, but depending upon your build, you could have a defensive or a utility here. Definitely want to make sure that it's a Fenris chest though, so you get the 2 talents. And you definitely want to have the trifecta of stats here, as this is going to be the best. This is your second red attribute here. For your holster, you want to get skill power. 100% you want to get skill power. This is why I decided to go for D&H. The accuracy, I don't really care about, but I got skill power, I got a talent, and I got a mod slot, giving my chem launcher almost 500 skill power here, which is insane. But also, you know, 2 yellow attributes in 1 piece, helping me get to that total of 7. For the backpack here, I went for R&K. There's a ton of different backpacks you could go for, man. You could go for Murakami, you could go for Alps, you could go for Wyvern, you could go for Gila, you can go for Providence. Honestly, I'd rather have Providence, and I mean, getting the backpack is probably the hardest piece, because as you can see, I would probably prefer to use this Providence backpack here, because, you know, I get extra skill power. Hazard protection, it's nice, but it's not helping me out a ton. But look, the weapon damage roll here is pretty low, and I don't want to lose that much weapon damage, but the armor here is higher. And it's giving me a total of 4 attributes, right? That's what I care about the most, getting the total of 4 attributes, 1 being red, 1 being blue, and then 2 being yellow. At least that's the way that I have it set up. But this could be totally different for your build depending upon like your chest piece, you know? So this is how I would like to have it set up. But also, instead of getting cooldown reduction, I'd probably rather have skill power here. But like I said, it's just a pain in the ass getting the right backpack, and there's a ton of different ones that you could use. I'd say just use whichever one works perfectly for your build. Ideally, you want to get weapon damage on the backpack in some capacity, whether or not that be through a red attribute, or that be through an offensive system mod. Offensive system mods are great as they give you 6.5% weapon damage, so I would recommend having either 2 of your red attributes going into the 6.5% weapon damage mod, or getting 6% weapon damage on the backpack. Ideally, this would actually be 10%, giving me way more damage. And then I have a little bit of armor here, which is great. This could be health, as 3k armor is kind of negligible, but you need this blue roll here. And then for the yellow attribute, I have cooldown reduction. I'd much rather have skill power, but I don't think it really matters that much. I mean, I'd probably be getting like 100 to 200 skill power here, and that isn't really helping me meet the thresholds for my mod, so maybe CDR is perfect, who knows. For the talents, of course, it's extremely important to get on the ropes here, and I have hardened just for more armor, which is going to give me more damage with unstoppable force, but you could go for hard hitting, which is going to give you damage to elites, which is great. And then for the mod slot, I just have skill power, chem launcher skill power, that's great. For the gloves, these could be better, but I went for Gila gloves. I probably would prefer to go for Alps gloves and then use a Gila backpack if possible, but getting that set up is very difficult. The reason I do that is because I could get Alps gloves with 13% total damage, and I could still have the utility mod slot in Alps gloves. Let me find where that is. I don't even have one in my inventory. But you could get Alps gloves with the utility mod slot, and I'd probably rather do that. But the reason I have Gila is just because I need the blue attribute here in order to get to 7, and it still has a mod slot. And I know you might be saying, well, 7% damage, right? You're losing a lot of damage. In total, I end up gaining more damage with the setup, even though I am losing a little bit. Personally, I was only losing 2% because my other gloves that I was using was at 9%, but you could get to 13% with a perfect roll of another pair of glove that has only 1 attribute. But with Gila, you could get to a total of 8. I only have 7 right now, but you definitely want to get the damage here. That's going to give you more damage than pretty much any other red attribute will, other than maybe like if you get a 10% on your chest piece or something like that. And then for the talent, I have Precise. You can go for Devastating if you want. I probably would have, and then that would have made my AR go up to 20.3k base damage, which is really good. As of right now, I'm only at 19.3. And then for the mod slot, just extra skill power. Just trying to get a lot of skill power here. For the knee pads, Gila knee pads are extremely easy to get, thank God. I have a mod, or I have armor here, sorry. And then for the talent, I have hard hitting. You could decide to go for patience, although they are going to be nerfing that, which is kind of unfortunate. And then for the mod slot, I have a protocol mod here with headshot damage. You could just decide to go for something else here, but I liked having the extra damage. This is just a generic mod. You'd only get health here, so I don't think health is all that valuable. I'd rather just have the headshot damage. And I also have a defensive system mod with bonus armor and extra armor. This is a total of getting me 3 blues here, which helps me get to a total of 7. This defensive generic mod right here, even though it's red right here, since it's fitting into a defensive slot, it counts towards defensive. Now, I could also have a better mod slot here, and instead could be going for a headshot damage if I want more headshot damage. And in certain pieces, such as like, you know, a utility system, I could instead have like, you know, more damage to armor here, or more damage to with an AR damage maybe here, instead of having the mod slot for, you know, chem launcher skill power. It's kind of just up to you. If you have the good generic mods, lucky you, you can throw those in there. I just went for skill power, getting my chem launcher to a total of 2200 skill power, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't even need that much because my mods aren't that great. My mods could be way better. As of right now, I am running +4 ammo and +40% healing. I don't really know if it would be worth it to go for +30% healing or whatever on this other mod here. I think I'd rather just have the ammo. The reason being is that with On the Ropes, when you put your chem launcher down, it counts as a skill being on cooldown. So usually what I like to do is just preemptively put down like 3 or 4 charges of a chem launcher so that it's on cooldown for a long time. And I honestly think that I get enough heal from a 41% as it is. And I know that some people might not want to go for as much skill power as me, and it's fine. You don't have to. You can still get pretty decent mods with this. As you can see, if I go down to, you know, 800 even, plus 2 ammo is still going to be good enough to use properly. And then I could still have like only plus 20%. I just like to have a beefy chem launcher heal, and it could even be better if I decided to go for more healing on this other one. I just like to have the extra ammo, but if you have really good management of using it, it's up to you. You can decide to go for 2 healing ones or 1 with ammo. For the other skill, it doesn't really matter all that much. Pretty much what you want to do is just throw something down to get it on cooldown so that you have on the ropes up all of the time. I'm using a booster hive just because I like running faster. I really just throw it down and then I pretty much just break it instantly. You could do other skills. Honorable mention, pulse actually doesn't work with this because while the duration is up, you're not getting the extra damage. So if anybody wants to use spotter with on the ropes, that's going to be counterproductive as you are not getting the additional damage while pulse is up. You could use other stuff like a drone, seeker mine, firefly, whatever turret. You could just throw it down and then break it immediately. I just like using the hive as it's actually helpful. In terms of modding the hive, I unfortunately don't really have anything decent. I tried to craft some but got unlucky. Maybe I'd rather have stim efficiency to make me run faster. Maybe I'd rather have extra charges. I really have no idea. I don't have any good ones. It's entirely up to you which mods you put in here. It doesn't really matter. You might not even want to run the hive. Like I said, entirely up to you. But yeah, that's pretty much the build. I know it's an absolute mouthful. Like I said, the main thing you want to focus on is just getting 577 and getting the right pieces. It's a pain in the ass to do, but once you do it, obviously the return is great. You can take a look at my stat sheet here. I have no crit chance, no crit damage, but I have 99% headshot damage, which could be higher. And I have 18.5% all weapon damage and 23% AR damage with 76% damage to elites. And that could obviously be better if I had hard hitting on my backpack. And keep in mind, 25% weapon damage from on the ropes. Pretty much up all of the time, and I'm also getting unstoppable force. So my damage in the shooting range was without buffs even. So yeah, the build is pretty insane. Anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, please make sure to drop a like. And let me know what other videos you would like to see in the future. And subscribe for videos similar to this one. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Protected at all costs! Hey, watch yourself! Can't get shot again. No line of sight!
Heavily armored hostile detected.
Shoot them all! Holy fuck!
Reinforcements en route.
Hey, defense! They're dead! Shipping enemies here! Target's trying to heal! Eat this!